Yo, what is up guys, Bobby7King here, and today we're finally doing the player ranking for Disventure Camp Season 1. Which straight up was an interesting list to make, as I feel like once we get past like the bottom 5, the rest of the field is pretty even. Like in my other season-based rankings, this is based on the games that they played on this individual season, and it's not a ranking of them overall as players, so without further ado, we have the worst player of the season, and it's Nick. Nick is someone who is in the majority lines, but then later actively dismantles it because he gets tricked by Fiore and he votes out his ally next. He's such an easy vote to drag the next vote, but not even the people he flipped with liked him enough to keep him around a little longer just because he sucked at the challenges. Nick is an amazing character, but he makes the wrong move at every turn, so yeah, he's here in dead last. At number 13, we have the first boot of the season in Will. Will, like Nick, was in the majority alliance, and I do think had the initial team swap with Scabby and Fury not happen, he makes a very deep run. I think pre-merge he's safe because of the alliance, and also challenge strengths on paper when it's not related to his fears. Then at the merge, I think Lil or Ashley could be targeted first, as everyone would view them as bigger threats. However, that's just an if, and his actual game just has a quick downfall, as his alliance wasn't even unified to keep him in the game, so yeah, he's here at number 13. At number 12, we have the first teal team member, and it's Drew. Drew, like the other two, was in the majority boys alliance, but because Tom was being a paranoid nutcase, he believes a clearly nefarious threat, and once Tom thinks Drew is sus, he just takes him out. He didn't have really any allies in the game, and while him and Gabby talked, she wasn't really emotionally attached enough to fight harder for him to stay. Then again, Gret was headhunting for him to go, but that's just another reason to have him here at number 12. At number 11, we have the merge boot of the season, and it's Gabby, who I debatably think should be lower as she played such an abysmal game. She's instantly taken off the purple team for being annoying, would have been the first boot had that twist not been in play. On the teal team, the guys wanted to target her, and Dan doesn't really push back enough to keep her in the game. No one really wanted to work with her minus Gret, and that was just to use her. She has a really bad social game, but it does turn around when she has a totem and Gret and Ellie swap teams. She's able to save Ellie with the idol, which on paper you could wonder if this is a good move as she was taken out immediately after, but I still think this is a good move because she was able to take out a very strategically savvy player in Dan. Plus, she was able to keep Ellie, and if Alec and Fiora were playing logically, they should have kept her for at least a few more rounds just to maintain their control, but due to them not viewing Gabby as valuable enough to keep around, she's voted off near unanimously, so yeah, a bit of highs but massive lows, so yeah, she's here at number 11. At number 10, we have someone who was voted off twice during the game, and it's Gret. She was able to be the queen maker on her teal team before she's taken out, has an alliance with Tom and Gabby on lock. She's also able to take out Drew, however she ruins her game by just being such a prick to everyone around her, and once Miriam locks in, she's able to easily send Gret packing. If the purple team loses again, she's for sure a goner, and then at the final 7, even though Alec is a bigger threat, they just vote Gret out because she's just so unlikable. So while she did have control at one point, her social game was just so awful, so yeah, she's here at number 10. At number 9, we have the final boot of the pre-merge, and it's Dan. Dan is on the outs of the Drew vote, but is on the right side when Gret is taken out. He was just never really positioned the best in my opinion. The trio of Tom, Jake, and Miriam, plus the duo of Gabby and Ellie, never really showed that much care for him in the game as a game player, and he's taken out by Gabby because he just makes her upset and wasn't able to get himself safe. I think even if he made it to the merge, I could see him being the first to go as the extra number of the main teal team group, so for never really being the best spot with his body voting record, plus his mismanaged relationship with Gabby, he's here at number 9. At number 8, we have two people who I feel like really get screwed over by how the initial twist turned out, and also having double boots made their boots inevitable, and the worst player between the two ends up being Lil. I am aware of the fact that Lil was more strategically minded as she did create the alliance, and also pokes out Fury for being very intelligent. However, even if that twist doesn't happen and Nick doesn't get tricked by a 6-year-old, it's like she was still in a spot where if they merged with a foreign tag, she's 1, not in the best spot as Ashley is, as she has Will, and would bond well with the likes of Tom and Jake, and 2, I could see the other team targeting her because she is the team's leader. Plus, Nick was never going to work with her, so she was in the minority from there on out. So while her game has loads of potential, and I don't think she does much actively wrong, outside of not forcing Nick to just vote for Alec, she just ends up being a player primed to be plucked mid to late pre-merge, so yeah, she's here at number 8. At number 7, the final person of the 4-person alliance ends up being Ashley. You can take what I said about Lil's core game and replace it with Ashley, and not much changes. I think her odds are better at winning as his social game and threat management during the season was a lot better than Lil's, so that's why she's a spot higher. But there's not much to know outside of the fact that I think she could win out if she did get to the merge. We're at the top 6 and we have the final 6 to talk about, and at number 6 here we do have Jake, who outside of the Dan vote was never in danger of going home or was never on the wrong side of the vote. mainly because he was the heart of the teal team, so I don't see a world where he really gets taken out in the pre-merge. At the merge, he was able to be on the correct side both times, but actively gets tricked by Ellie into making one of the most game-ending moves that I've ever seen in voting for Tom. Believing a lie, and with his trust issues and him not being able to talk to Tom, really made it so he was just sitting with his emotions, and he makes a dumb move voting off his lover. After that, Jake just becomes so miserable that Alec and Fiora make a pretty wonky move in taking Jake out over Miriam. As I mentioned, I think Miriam is just better at Jake in challenges and also had more grit, but because he's so annoying, he just gets sent packing. He's also lower than the next person that we're going to be talking about because his social game has more glaring holes because he can be so annoying. At number 5, we have the leader of the teal team, Tom, who like Jake, there's not much to cover in the pre-merge. He's in a really good spot for most of it and votes correctly in every single round minus the Dan elimination, but he's able to stay safe. At the merge, once again, he's on the right side of the votes, but then at the final 6, Jake believes a lie, and while I think Tom playing the add-on Jake isn't the worst move in the world in theory, as in theory he could stay in the game, it's clearly a misread, and his perception as someone who is very secretive probably didn't help with Jake spiraling. The only reason why he's higher than Jake is because Jake actively ruins his game and Tom doesn't, and just gets outplayed, so yeah, Tom is here at number 5. At number 4, we have the first finalist to talk about, and it's Ellie. Initially, Ellie was on the bottom, however she's able to get into the majority with Alec and Fiore. The problem is Alec flips on her to keep Fiore, which isn't great, needs an idol to stay in the game, and then loses Gabby, all in the span of 4 rounds. The Gret move isn't that bad nor that good, but at the final 6, she really plays into Alex and Fiore's hand, and Jake and Miriam end up hating her for it. On the bright side though, she ends up surviving the final 5 vote by her small friendship with Alec, which is able to keep her safe in the game. However, she was never really in a core spot in the game, so while she does have good adjustments with fitting in with people, she was always in the bottom of those structures. At number 3, I think this might be controversial as he was all over the season, but I just think the other two play more actively and had better positioning, and it's Alec. Alec was initially on the bottom and probably gets voted off first over Ellie if it weren't for Fiore, and only works his way out to little to no effort on his own, all done by his counterpart. However, I do think he owns the Nick move, and that move is better for his game and Ellie's game more than Fiore. However, outside of that, I mean, Fiore just does most of the legwork, and Ellie is able to tell Gabby to vote for Ashley instead of someone else, although I still think Gabby probably votes for Ashley regardless, but still, there's no active work from Alec there. At the merge, Alec taking out Gabby is a bad move as Gabby was loyal to Ellie and Ellie was just starting to trust him again. He's in the minority but gets saved because Gret has an even worse social game than him, as he's just a very passive social player. At the final 6, him and Fiore control that round, but I think Alec makes a mistake at the final 5 that really just opens up his elimination. Yes, Jake is annoying, but I still think Jake is headhunting for Ellie over Alec, and I think unless Ellie is able to solo convince Fiore and Jake that Alec has to go immediately, there's a bigger chance that he stays at the final 4, at least more in canon. But he gets taken out at the final 4 in a game where I think he just got benefited by the people around him, and I can only say he really controlled the Nick and Tom boots and just does nothing too impressive or flashy on his own. At number 2, we have the winner of the season, and it's Miriam. Miriam doesn't actively start playing until the cooking round, but even then gets to stay over the halo effect of Jake's grandma dying, and once she locks in, she's able to have Jake, Tom, Gabby, and Dan all locked without Gret, and then is able to maintain a really great social game with everyone not really wanting to target her from there on out. She's safe during the Dan vote, she's at the core of the trio alliance, Alec and Fiore won't target her even though she's great at challenges and ends up being able to win the final 1. Despite being on the outs on the Tom vote, I think Miriam has a full package of a player this season, a great social game, great positioning, and was able to trick Ellie into getting 3rd place, and she was able to get her win, so yeah, she overall plays a pretty great game. So yeah, she's here at number 2. At number 1, it wasn't even close, it's Fiore, who, yes, she does give it off of her team, but I think with a little more time, she would have been able to have them fooled, minus maybe Dan, but even then, Dan doesn't have much pull on his team to begin with. Plus, we would later see she is able to form a tight bond with Gret, and with Gret comes Gabby, and with Miriam playing the anybody but me game, at the Drew round, she definitely stays with the help of Tom flipping, but she's on the purple team where she's able to integrate into the 4-person alliance, but then realizes that her odds are better with the duo in Alec and Ellie, and is able to dismantle that 4-person alliance, setting up the Will boot. The Nick boot isn't ideal for her, from my perspective at least, as Nick was someone solely loyal to her, but still regardless, I think as long as anybody from the 4 goes, the better. Creates the divide between Nick and his original allies, that's a really great play on her spot, really locking in her majority alliance, gets Alec to keep her over Ellie, which is impressive as Ellie and Alec were able to bond well at first, but she's able to have a deeper bond with him. Yes, she does make a bad move at the Gabby round, as I previously mentioned with Alec, but Alec is able to give her the win at the final 7, and I think without it, she even stays over Greb, so that's very good work by the both of them, but it obviously mainly benefits Fiore as she's able to win immunity. She really takes control of the final 6 vote with her master manipulation of Tom to get him to waste his idol on Jake. She takes out Jake, which yes, I knocked Alec for doing, but she was already guaranteed a spot in the finale since Jake was hated by Ellie and Alec, Ellie was hated by Jake and Miriam, and Ellie was hurt by Alec for the 3rd time. At the final 4, she cuts Alec, which I think is a 50-50 move. Yes, he likely wins the final challenge, but I also think he keeps her, or at least tries to help her to get to 2nd, and with how cutthroat Fiore is, and also how savvy she is, I think she could have been able to outsmart him. Overall, Fiore's game does have minor issues, but there's no denying that she dominated the majority of the season, so yeah, she's here at number 1. And that is the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, hopefully you enjoyed it. Huge shout out to Fluffy for the thumbnail. Their account is in the description below, and while you're at it, join the Discord as well, as you can get fast channel updates and chat. We're building a community over there. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. I love you guys so much, and yeah, peace out.